Hi everyone, welcome to Dremels. Today we're gonna share with you an article published by Harvard Business Review. This is the article: How to Hire for Emotional Intelligence. The topic today is related with human resources and also with management. So let's start with this article. First, first of all, we know from research and common sense that people who understand and manage their own and others' emotion make better leaders. They are able to deal with stress, overcome obstacles, and inspire others to work toward collective goals. Also, they manage conflict with less negative consequence and build stronger teams. The most important thing in a company. Also, they are generally happier at work too. But still, in many companies around the world, far too many managers lack basic self-awareness and social skills. Those abilities which are so important in a company. All too. Um, for example, they don't recognize the impact of their own feelings and moods. These kinds of leaders or managers are less adaptable than they need to be in today's fast-paced world, and they don't demonstrate basic empathy for others, also for their coworkers or employees, and they don't understand people's need. When you don't understand people's need, means that you are unable to meet those needs or inspires people to act. So one of the reasons that we have and that we face in this situation is this: that we as leader, um, we don't hire for it. We don't hire people with strong emotional intelligence. So we see far too little emotional intelligence in the workplace, uh, and we have for pedigree, which means that um, we are we see more the background of people. We look for where someone went to school, high grades and test scores, technical skills and certification. Not whether they build great teams or get along with others, which is important too. And we also hire because how smart we think someone is matters a lot. So, in short words, we hire for intellect. Those are the reasons beyond that problem. So, obviously, we need smart, experienced people in our companies, um, but we also need people who are adept at dealing with change, people who are expert at dealing with different problematic situations, people who understand and motivate others and manage both positive and negative emotion to create an environment where everyone can be at their best. So the problem is that we struggle to assess emotional intelligence when hiring. When we try to assess emotional intelligence in our company, most of the time we spend a fortune on personality tests and search firms, but we are never taught how we have to apply these systems, how we have to evaluate our people, our employees, how how can we assess emotional intelligence in our company. We don't know enough. So in this article, it's going to introduce some steps to follow and how to hire for emotional intelligence people with high emotional intelligence in our company. So there are some advice here. Um, mm, so so we have to start with this. We actually can hire for emotional intelligence, and it doesn't have to cost an arm. It doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg if you want to begin. We have to start with these do's and don'ts. First, we will start with don'ts, the thing that you should avoid. So So the first, use personality tests. Don't use personality tests as a proxy for emotional intelligence. Most of these tests attempt to measure what they say they do, how people act, like the following question: how is your personality? So they don't measure specific competences of emotional intelligence such as self-awareness, positive outlook, achievement orientation, empathy, or inspirational leadership. The other thing that you should avoid is don't use a self-report test. What is that self-report test? There are two reasons these don't work. First, if a person is not self-aware, how can he possibly assess his own emotional intelligence? And we have another question next. And if he is self-aware and knows what he's missing, is he really going to tell the truth when trying to get a job? Those are the reasons. Those are the reasons to these things. Self-report tests don't work, and also don't use a 360-degree feedback instrument. Let's try to degree feedback instrument. What is that? Even if it is valid, and even if it measures emotional intelligence competencies like the emotional and social competency inventory does, a tool like 360-degree feedback ought to be used for development, no, not for evaluation. When these instruments such as 360-degree feedback are used to evaluate, people game them by carefully selecting the respondents and even prepping them on how to score. So for that, it doesn't work too. So here is the thing that you need to do as a leader, for hiring people with high emotional intelligence. First, you have to get references and talk to them. Get references and talk to them. Letters of reference simply are not good enough when it comes to understanding your candidate. Uh, when you actually talk with a reference, you can ask specific and pointed questions about how the candidate demonstrated various emotional intelligence competences. Get lots of examples with lots of detail. Specifically ask for examples of how your candidate treats other people, the way he or she treats other people in his or her place of work. So the next thing that you need to do is interview for emotional intelligence. This sounds easy, and many people think they are already interviewing for emotional intelligence, but we aren't much of the time. That's because we allow people to be vague in their responses and fail to ask good follow-up questions. Even when we ask candidates directly about emotional intelligence or emotional intelligence related competencies, they talk about an idealized notion of themselves and what they would like to be, rather than how they really behave. So, to overcome this obstacle, you can use behavioral even interviewing. What is behavioral even interviewing? The behavioral even interviewing is a powerful way to learn about people's competencies and to see how they demonstrate those competencies on the job. Here is what you need to do. First, we have to start interviewing by making the candidates as comfortable as possible. Comfortable as possible. The goal here is to make the interview feel conversational, little bit informal and warm. This tone will help to ensure that you get the truth. Then ask a couple of traditional questions about the person's backgrounds and experience. The next step is, now that you are ready to start the behavioral event portion of the interview, ask the person to think about a recent situation at work that include difficult challenge. That include a difficult challenge that she or he and others had to solve. Encourage your candidate to pick a situation where she is the protagonist and ask her to choose a situation that was ultimately successful, one that made her feel proud. So you have to encourage her to tell the story briefly at first and then go over the entire story, asking very specific questions about what she thought, what she felt and did throughout. So now, as for a story about an unsuccessful situation, one that felt like a failure, and that your candidate learned something from. Again, as for a brief, for a general description, and then get a lot of detail. So finally, you want to leave your candidate feeling good about you and the interview. So seek yet another positive, successful story to finish. This interview technique allows you to ask for and hear details about how the candidate thinks in situations that involves stress, challenges, and other people. You also get information about how they felt during the situation. At the very least, this tells you if the person is aware of his own feelings. You are also likely to hear how the person managed these feelings and the extent to which he was aware of his impact on others. And importantly, make sure you get the person to tell you what they actually did and how they behave. This is where you will hear about the overt demonstration of emotional intelligence. Here in those situations, it's gonna be more easy to take better decisions. So behavioral event interviewing is not magic. It's not magic, and the most important, it takes practice to get enough detail in each story. So you have to practice a lot to make your interview more productive. Don't worry about asking the person to go back over portions of the story a time or two. Rather, try to get them to tell you the story from a couple of vantage points. What he thought, what he felt, and then what he actually did. Take your time. This is not a kind of interviewing you can do in a half an hour, but the time is well spent. If you are able to see your candidate's emotional intelligence in action, you will make a better hire. Either way, you are doing yourself and your organization a big favor. So this article was written by Annie Mackey. Annie Mackey is a senior fellow at the University of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education, and the director of PNCLO Executive Doctorate Program. She is the author of How to Be Happy at Work and co-author of Primal Leadership, Resonant Leadership, and Becoming a Resonant Leadership. And finish. This article was published in Harvard Business Review with the title How to Hire for Emotional Intelligence. Well, that's all for today. This is Dremels.